Good morning, everybody. We were experiencing a little technical difficulty there. We've got that worked out. Thank you for joining us for the August 25th, 2026 Talk About It Tuesday. This is our agenda this morning. We're going to have a board meeting recap, have an update on Grant Cycle 11, some information on Act 2026-371, a little information on training and reminders.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Good deal. Sorry about that. For whatever reason, the Zoom platform was not allowing me in. I don't know why that was, but so one of the goals to talk about it Tuesday is to inform, to educate, and kind of give you a recap of what the board's doing and how we are attempting to not only fulfill the mandates in the law, but also give a better idea of how we're attempting to help you all as 911 districts. And so, to that end, we'll talk a little bit about legacy reimbursement. We'll also talk about grant program activities, and then we will talk about the rules process with enacting 371, as well as a consolidation, a dissolution, and a contracting rule. So, Michelle, next slide. So let's talk about legacy cost reimbursement. And if you all remember when the engine network was turned up about 6 years ago, AT&T and Brightspeed had continued to bill for legacy charges. And those legacy charges were for select router connectivity, as well as for database steering and other type of legacy routing. I would say infrastructure, although that's a kind of a poor term. And those charges had never gone away. We have been able to whittle those down, but very fortunately, AT&T has given us the indication in writing that they will cease all legacy charges on September the 26th of this year. As a result of that, then you all as 911 district should not receive any legacy charges going forward from specifically AT&T. Now, there is some other Brightspeed charges that are billed to the board directly that we're working on whittling down, but as a result of that, a plan was presented to the State 911 Board last week at our meeting in Gulf Shores to end the legacy reimbursement program. And very simply put, is that if you are not getting any legacy charges, then there really is no need for the program. And so, with the conclusion of this year's billing cycle, which will close on September the 30th, and Michelle, you can go to the next slide, then your October bill should be the last billing cycle that has any legacy charges. So we will continue to take those bills until the end of this calendar year. And after that, the program will conclude. Again, if you're not being billed for these things, there is no reason for you to have to seek reimbursement. So we do have currently 7 ECDs that have not submitted invoices or have up-to-date invoices for us. And so we would just request that you all please do that very quickly, and then make sure that you're caught up with your legacy reimbursement submittals. Again, we are super proud to have worked with AT&T to be able to end this, and we also want to be able to work with y'all so that if there are any stragglers, that we have the ability to be able to go in and help you negotiate those away. And I am not in a position where I can see the chat, but obviously if you have any questions, then please do not hesitate to put those in, and I will do my best to answer those. All right, so let's go on the next slide, and we'll talk a little bit about the grant program. And the next slide really gives some information as to what the board concluded last week. So we'll move on past this one to the next one. Essentially, we had 24 different ECDs that had applied for the grants and the total requests were $4.92 million in grant requests. And out of those 4.92, 4.31 million of that was deemed as eligible, meaning it was CHE related and implementation of FCC report and order phase 2 related. The rub here is that there is only $3 million set aside for grant funds this year. So basically, there's $1.3 million more that's been requested than what is needed. And as a result of that, the board has to go and really think about how to best use those grant funds. Next slide, please. So the motion that the board made in the August meeting was to, and what ultimately passed, was to postpone that grant decision till the November board meeting. We anticipate awarding all $3 million, no issue there. But we need to go and look and see exactly what has been requested again and see where, if that means a cost share needs to take place, or if there are other considerations that we should take place, then we need to do that. At least part of that, and you can go to the next slide, Michelle, will occur on at the Gulf Coast Conference with a finance committee meeting. So we're going to call a finance committee meeting on the Tuesday of the Gulf Coast Conference, most likely in the morning. I'm still working with Rod Coleman to get a room for that. But some of the staff will be reaching out to you grant applicants that have asked for these grant funds, and we'll ask some very basic questions around, how much money is in your reserve, what's in your checking account, if you have any money held in your investment accounts, and overall, what's your operating position. And so you'll either hear from Anderson or somebody else on staff as they reach out and gather that information. The goal is to have all of that in place in preparation for a finance committee meeting that will be held at the Gulf Coast Conference, and then ultimately for a decision that will be made in the November board meeting, which will be held at Tuscaloosa 911. Next slide. You are invited to that meeting. It is going to be on that Tuesday. Again, we're still working with the conference committee to find the best location, as well as some room at PBR that can accommodate us. And so we think right now that they will be able to give us a Tuesday afternoon slot. But if it's not Tuesday afternoon, it'll be Tuesday morning. This meeting will be publicly advertised once we have the location. And so we should be able to publicly advertise that in the next couple weeks. You shouldn't have to, for those of you that applied, you shouldn't have to do anything other than answer the few questions that Anderson or staff provides you. And the goal is to be able to go and just do a thorough review, because we want to be able to award the grants the most appropriate way, as well as give the board members and committee members the full breadth and depth of exactly what is being requested there. Any questions about that?
Brandon Wallace reminds us that that afternoon it's the shrimp boil day, so may not want to do it too late in the afternoon.
It might be an incentive to have a quick meeting. So, and again, we're just, like I said, we're just waiting on conference committee to tell us where we can meet. So next slide, Michelle. All right. One of the big ticket items that I'll cover is really related to administrative rules. So next slide, and we'll talk about Act 2026-371. So 2026-371 establishes a reporting and readiness criteria for 911 centers in the state, as well as also gives oversight for the administration of an audit on AG referral if there is a valid complaint that is lodged with the AG's office. A law is the portion of the way in which we conduct business that tells us what to do as a board. An administrative rule tells us how to go about doing that. So for many of you that this might be your first time hearing of this, we had appointed a steering group. We called it the 371 Advisory Group, to be able to write the administrative language specifically tied to 2026-371 for the implementation of this readiness standard, as well as for the auditing portion of the statute. At our board meeting last Wednesday, the board voted to go into the official rulemaking process. And as a result of that, I have now filed to begin the rulemaking process so that you all can have adequate opportunity to comment on the rule, to make questions of the rule. Even at the Gulf Coast Conference, as my previous slide referred to, we will have a session on Monday afternoon from 1 until 3:50 to talk about 2026-371, to go through the rule. And then immediately following that, you will have the opportunity to file written comments that the board will consider in its next board meeting in November in Tuscaloosa. The ultimate goal of this is to be able to have really comprehensive feedback from the districts, but also remember at the same time, the state legislature has tasked the 911 board to implement not only this readiness standard, but also the auditing responsibility as well. The auditing is only on AG referral, meaning we can't decide to audit you ourselves. The AG would have to tell us to, but we want to do that in the most appropriate way possible. You've had multiple members of this committee, or rather of this group, that have worked towards this advisory opinion and rule writing that was ultimately presented to the board last Wednesday, and the board accepted. And so let's talk a little bit about, and on the next slide, it'll talk a little bit about the readiness and performance audits. So the rule basically says this: there is a readiness standard that is required, and that requirement will be fulfilled through a quarterly readiness report. Basically, that is the number of calls answered, the typical call volume, and some very basic metrics that I feel like I've talked about a lot, both at the AAND workshop in July and then the ACCA conference last week. And in addition to that, it lays out how we would go do a performance audit if so directed by the Attorney General's office. And then it gives a phased approach to how we would go about implementing all of this. And so we are still waiting for the notice of intended rulemaking to be published, and we had anticipated it being published by the end of this month. And then after that, we will send the draft rule out for everybody to view. And then I really recommend that you come to my session on the Monday of the Gulf Coast Conference from 1:50 to 3 p.m. and ask your questions. This is not anything that the 911 board sought out to do. This was something that was mandated by the legislature, and so we want to make sure that we meet that mandate, but we don't require in the administrative rule more than what the law requires. So we're very cognizant of that as well. All right, second thing, and if you'll go to the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about a consolidation and dissolution rule that the board voted to go into the administrative rulemaking process on the same calendar as the 371 rule. So basically, what we are doing is writing a rule specifically around consolidation, dissolution, and contracting that just mirrors the statute as it is written and the law that we are governed by. This is based on audit findings and audit recommendations that we needed to have the administrative rule that went along with this statute, and so we're attempting to do that. This doesn't change the law. This doesn't do anything other than just put feet and a clear path to what the law requires the board to do. This was also reviewed by the advisory group as well as by our board, and we will talk about this rule as well during my session at the Gulf Coast Conference. One thing to talk about too when it comes to this is that session will not be just me. It'll be all of the advisory group members as they give their feedback on why some decisions were made. But ultimately, the goal is just to implement the law and to do that without teaching. Let's see, what else? Next slide, Michelle. All right.
You, let's see, I think you talked about this. You want the calendar?
Yeah, and this is if we can go to the calendar. And thank you for driving this morning. So my mom is having knee surgery, and I am sitting out in the parking lot before she's taken in for that surgery. So I appreciate everybody's understanding this morning. All right, let's talk about rulemaking calendar in terms of what the rule looks like and how it's implemented. So I filed the notice of intended rulemaking on the 20th of this month, and then that rule will be published in the Alabama Administrative Monthly, which opens a formal comment period. That'll happen at the end of this month. I've told you about my panel at the Gulf Coast Conference. One thing that is important to mention is that immediately prior to the state board meeting in November, on November the 18th at 9:30 a.m. So our board meeting starts at 10, but at 9:30 a.m. we will have a public hearing in which we can hear from the public. The board can hear from the public directly or from ECDs directly. I would not wait till the public hearing to let your voice be heard. I would file written comments before then, whether that's at the Gulf Coast Conference or me directly. In addition to that, at the end of the board meeting, pending adoption by the board, the rule will be adopted. Certification will take place, and then the rule will take effect based on that certification, but it'll be in the early portion of 2027. Next slide. All right, how comments are filed. You may file a comment in one of four ways, either by email to my address, by mail to the office address. You can deliver it to our office, or in person at the Gulf Coast Conference. These all need to be written comments. The only time that we will take verbal comments is during the public hearing in November, at November the 18th. So, any questions about any of that I have? All right, next slide, Michelle. All right, let's cover some of the other things that the board took up at the last meeting. And just to reiterate something that I feel like I've said before when I talk about it Tuesday, but we'll say again, is that our board meetings are now beginning to move around the state to make us more accessible to you, us as a board and as a staff more accessible to you, and so that hopefully that you will come and be a part of a board meeting. And that's the reason that we had our last meeting at the Lodge at Gulf State Park in coordination with the Alabama Association of County Commissions convention or conference, which was held at Perdido Beach Resort. But the other things the board talked about at a very high level is they approved a 2027 budget that included the mechanism to be able to fund and implement 371, as well as we did a quarterly financial report and they approved the finances there. In addition, the board did approve the position of regional field manager, and those regional field managers will be structured very similarly to EMA or to ALEA's field managers, in that they will help you with reporting and related to 371, and they'll also help you with training, education, and be a representative to you all in the field. Now, I will say this: I have a very, I guess, specific view of what a field manager should do, and they should be a resource to you. I also do not want to hire more than is needed, and so this will be a very slow roll and a slow approach to implementing this new program. We will start out with one or two field managers, and that number will grow over time. But we don't want to hire more than what we need, and so we're going to take this very slowly. In addition, and related to 371, the board approved 2 agreements with Rapid SOS and Axon for a trial no-cost agreement between the board, the city of Montgomery, and those 2 various companies for an analytics project in support of 371 and with the use of artificial intelligence to help gather the reporting data for 371. We do not know ultimately what the outcome of this will be, but it is no cost to the board. And it is a way in which we can judge technology as well as see what new opportunities we have with the injection of artificial intelligence for analytics and reporting on call volume, call times, drop calls, that type of thing. Some other things that we covered is, the board is a fairly young board, about 13 years old now. And with the retirements that we have had and we continue to have, one of the benefits that has lacked is retiree health insurance. And so the board voted to extend that to retirees. Currently, we only have one retiree, and that is Leah. As of next week, Adam Brown will retire. And we held his retirement party at the Gulf Coast or at the lodge at Gulf State Park right before the board meeting. And so he would be another retiree that would potentially be eligible. Now, there are some parameters around that have real impact to if you can draw that benefit or not. But again, it's also completely optional. So just because you have it doesn't mean you have to use it. But again, the board's concerned about the long-term care of its employees. And then finally, you all are aware that from a perspective in how government runs in Montgomery, things are about to change. Specifically, we'll have a new governor in January of next year. And from the seat that I sit as the executive director of the 911 board in the state, I want to be able to give the incoming governor, whoever that might be, a look into what the board's plan is for the next 12 or 18 months, as well as to be able to be a resource to the new governor and his staff, or to be able to articulate what the 911 community might need from state government. And so as a result of that, I had drafted a one-page 12 and 18-month plan, and the board approved that as well. Again, we know that things will change within new administration in Montgomery. So our goal as a board and as a staff is to be proactive in that and to begin to build those relationships soon. So in summary, next slide, Michelle. What can you do now that you've heard my 25-minute long spiel on our board recap? Well, reconcile your legacy AT&T accounts and send them in. If you're a grant, if you're somebody that's applied for a grant, respond to Anderson's email with the requested information. Come see me and the panel on the Monday of the Gulf Coast Conference as we discuss 371 and the consolidation and dissolution rule. Then come to our finance committee meeting on the following day, on October the 13th. And then if you have a comment related to either one of those rules, put them in writing and file them by November the 18th. Again, you can do them verbally on November the 18th, but I would recommend doing it in writing before then. Next slide. All right, so I have talked for an extended period of time. What are your questions?
Feel free to unmute yourself, drop it in chat. I am watching chat. I see Brandon's posted a picture of that EMD instructor course. They look like they are paying good attention to us. No questions.
Right. I think that ends my portion of the program today. Thank y'all.
Right. Laura, are you available to talk about the cyber class?
I am. I'm in transit. I just left the EMT instructor class. My service remains while I'm speaking, but the cyber decision should happen on September 9th. This is the last class scheduled in person right now that we have scheduled with openings. We do have 2 crisis call taking classes that are both full, and looking to have some more of those. And I'm also working on our fiscal year 27 calendar and schedule. But this will be the last in-person class currently scheduled. So you need CEUs. If you use a laptop, a device of any kind, no matter what role you serve in, this class is for you. And OTM will be coming to instruct that class. Is there another slide, Michelle?
I left the one in about texting or about texting
Yes.
911.
Yeah, just a reminder, and I feel that it's important for us to remind everybody anytime we have your ears that every shift, every console needs to be logged in to Texty or Prepare, whichever platform you use currently for your incoming 911 text. I'm working on something that I would like to send to every agency as a reminder, a physical reminder, and trying to determine what that looks like. So just moving forward with that and a reminder of that. And I know that there is not a slide in here for this, and I regrettably didn't put one in there, but we have secured our venue for our 2027 conference, and that will be the Von Braun Center in Huntsville, Alabama, May 3rd through 6th, 2027. And it's going to look a little different. Daniel and I have been talking about a little bit of a different schedule, and I'm very excited about that and the layout and everything that is going to go along with that. We have begun that planning process, and once registration is ready to open and the hotel block is open, of course, we will let you know with all the various platforms. So we're excited to have you guys come back and join us again for that conference. That is all I have for now.
Right. Thanks, Laura. Be safe coming back.
Thank
Just
you.
a few reminders that we have every time. PST certification reimbursement, if you get it to us by the 10th of the month, is generally paid out at the end of the same month. Legacy, as you heard, it is ending, but we are still taking submissions now. Again, if they're in by the 10th of the month, they're generally paid out at the end of the month. And upload, validate, aggregate your GIS data to the state office VEP every 2 weeks. I should have handed that off to Rachel.
I think that's yours forever, Michelle.
Okay, here we are, our email addresses, our phone number. If you need anything from us, feel free to, drop us a line, give us a call. We're here to be a help to you. Any questions? Anybody thought of anything as you've sat there listening to me ramble?
And I would be remiss, Michelle, if I didn't give Adam Brown the opportunity to talk. And we're just so appreciative of Adam. As I'd said last week in his retirement breakfast, you may not hear, Adam and Lee are very much similar in that you may not hear from them a whole lot in terms of they may not talk a lot about what they're doing, but you all as a 911 community would know for a fact if Adam wasn't doing his job. And so, Adam, I just appreciate you, and I appreciate the work that you've done for the 911 board and your willingness to be helpful to us in this leadership change. And thank you, Adam. I appreciate it very much.
Thanks, Caleb. I thought I was going to slip under the radar, but
Nope.
I'm very, very thankful for, all of you guys, both out there on the internet that either are here live with us or may watch the video. I'll still be around. I'm not gonna evaporate. Anderson said he'll find me if I do. But very appreciative. It's been a hell of a ride, and I've enjoyed every bit of it. Thank you all.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you, Adam. Lamisa dropped in the chat here. Thank you. Anything else from anybody? Well, again, we appreciate you joining us for our Talk About It Tuesday. I should have looked at the date for the next one. Let me see here real quick. Let's see. The 4th Tuesday in September will be the 22nd. So not sure our topic yet, but that's the plan, is to have our next one on September 22nd. Y'all have a good week.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you all.